Alright, welcome back to the flag project in Autodesk Maya. So in this tutorial we're going to basically cover how to essentially create this sort of pyramid structure, which again I found off of Pexels, this image of pyramid in Mexico. And again, if you look at the two, it's not an exact match. I'll bring it back up here again. You can see it does have sort of the top here, but it doesn't quite have the exact same shape. The stairs, it does have an angle to the photo, so this could be a true representation of the actual temple, but I do believe it's a little bit wider if I look at it and try and angle it the same angle. And so it's exact, this is an exact measurement, it's just a reference, so I'm not looking for an exact replication of this object here. But I want to share, I basically duplicate out different parts that are essential to creating this. The main is the base here, and then there's all the little top here, which is probably the easiest part to create. And then we have the stairway, which has two different parts, and then just duplicate around the edges there. So I'm going to review this whole process here in the center here. So if you look at it, the base structure here is a cube. So I'm just going to go to the poly modeling shelf and click on the cube. It'll end up in the center here. And then I just scale it up. So that's the first step. Grab the scale tool here, again hotkey R, and start scaling up. And you can see here it's starting to penetrate through the plane here at the bottom, so I'm going to kind of flatten it a little bit, and I am going to make it wider though, try and approximate the same size there, and then just kind of squish it, and then I'll have to move it up a little bit to get about, and you can have it pierce the geometry a little bit, but basically I'm just trying to get approximately the same thickness that I have there on that one there. That's pretty close as a starting point. And basically if you look at this, essentially this has a texture map to it, but essentially it's just extrusions and scaling, and you've done this before in the past through tutorials showing you. So you can right click and use a little widget here and go to face mode and do it that way, or go back to object mode. But you can also use your modeling toolkit. So if you click on the modeling toolkit here, this little far left icon, and then click on faces. Now with this face selected here, we can do an extrude. So you can click on the extrude button here, and then all you gotta do is click on the blue cube here, and then click on the center cube and drag inwards a little bit to a certain amount. So that looks pretty good. And then you just got to repeat that process. So you can click the extrude again, and then go up. And as soon as you go up, you'll start to see a measurement here. And what I did to keep this consistent, I typed in a 3-unit measurement for each one. So that's all I had to do is hit number 3 there, in there. And then I'm going to repeat this action now by hitting the G key. So G is the hotkey for any previous action that you want to do. So I just again scale in by clicking first the blue cube and then drag in the left on this guy. Then hit G, grab blue arrow, start to pull up, and then just type in the value of 3 and hit enter there. And basically that's it. I mean, basically I just kept doing that up all the way to the top. So I got, I believe there was 9 units there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, to the very top. I'm not going to repeat it because it's very repetitive. But after that, if you notice each of the besides having it go up, it also has a slant to everything. So the way to get the slant, I'll go to edge mode here again, just by clicking on the edge here, and then all you have to do is double click on one of these edge loops like that, and then hold the shift key and double click on the next one and double click on the next one. And on the final one at the top, you're going to have this issue where it doesn't go all the way around, so you can just click on the 4, and as you rotate around you can see I have all these edge loops selected. So what I could do then is just scale in from the center and drag inwards like this, and they'll all be kind of uniform, and that's how I got the scale effect to happen. Again, scale tool over here. So it's pretty easy to do. Once you have that set up, you're pretty much good to go. So again, I already have this, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this, but that's basically how I got that. Then to get the stair effect, let's go over this part here. This section here, I had to add to the form a cube to the side here on this object. So what I'm going to do with this guy here is I'm going to move this one into the center here and pretend that I've done this. Forget about the texture right now that's on here, but actually I can go to number 5 so we don't see the texture here. And essentially what I'm going to do is then add a cube. So I'm going to click on a cube, and I'll have to pull it out because it's hidden inside and it's really small. So I'll scale it up a little bit here. And then essentially what I needed to do was go to the side view. Now this pyramid is not centered anymore, so I'm going to select it and go to my top view real quick and just center it. And it's once I'm on the grid here, I should be able to just zoom around and see it. The plane here is in the way, so I'm going to actually hide the plane real quick. There we go. And now I can just hit the W key to move this into the center here. And if I want it to be the exact center here, I can hold on the X key. And what that does, I'll snap to the grid, and it will snap to that center line there. So that's what I need to do to get it to centered. And now you can see the cube would line up exactly to the side here. So the idea here is for this rail system is to basically scale it up straight up. So I could just hit R and kind of scale it up and keep scaling to a certain amount, thin it out a little bit. And then I'd have to move it up a little bit like that. And at this point, then what I would do is start to rotate it. So I just hit E for the rotation tool, which again is over here. And then grab it in the red, that's the X rotation here. You can see the value starting to rotate. And just kind of rotate until I get a pretty good lineup on the pyramid there to face the kind of line there. Then I would go to my ortho views. This is where the orthographic views become really important. And so if I hit W, I can kind of slide this in and kind of match it. And then I would want to go into component mode to kind of line this up properly. So again, go back to modeling toolkit and go to vertices. And I just drag over these two verts here just by dragging over it, marquee select, and then just drag them down like this. And what I essentially want this to do is line up with the top here. And it should be flat. So you can see that they're angled like this. So one trick you can use to flatten these out is you can use a scale tool. So I can double click on the scale tool and make sure that I'm in a world view, not object view. And then all I gotta do is grab the top one guy down here, and it will kind of flatten it out like that just by dragging that down. Then I can reposition it where I want. So I want it to line up with that top line there. And then down here at the bottom, I repeat that same process. Just grab these lines, make sure I'm in world view. Again, I just double click on the tool to open this option up, and then switch to my scale tool, and then drag that down to flatten it out. And then basically just pull this up to line up with the bottom. And the idea here is we want to cover up the interior, these interior areas. So I'd want to move this guy in more. So I just drag over that and kind of push in a little bit. And do the same thing on this guy. Drag over and push in a little bit until I get to cover up. And now I have sort of a railing system for that pyramid, as you can see here. It sort of lines up great. So the last little bits, I made a little extrusion on the inside and basically extrude it in to give room for the stair. So the way I did that was through the insert edge loop tool. I have that in my custom shelf. If you ever want to do that, it's down in the mesh tools under insert edge loop tool. There it is there. And I'm going to go to the options here by clicking the little square box. And then I'm going to choose multiple edge loops and select 2. And you just select 2 using the slider here or type in a value here, which already is. And I'm going to click right here. And what that does is creates 2 edge loops here. And I'm going to click on the arrow to escape out. And then I'm going to double click on this one, hold the shift key and double click on that one. And then I'm going to grab my scale tool. And again, that's the scale tool over here. I'm just going to scale it out a little bit just to give kind of a spacing for the railing. And then I'm going to go back to face mode. So I'm going to click on face, close this out, click on this face, and then hold the shift key and click on that face. And then I can do an extrude. So I can click on the extrude tool here, and then basically just grab the blue arrow here and kind of drag inwards like that. And that will give me enough spacing for the extrude to happen there, a little spacing for the stairway. Now, if you get any other kind of effects, like if you want to get rid of this extra face here, you can select it and just delete it if it gets in the way. There's a couple other faces here that get in the way, but I think what I have there is fine. I'll hide that once I bury it with the land, so it's okay to leave it where it's at. After that, so that I added textures, I actually added divisions along the whole line here. I think I did 50, or maybe I did 20 or something, or 10, I think I did 10 there. So you want to add divisions along your lines here eventually to give yourself uh, basically detail and for the textures or materials. It's better to add to subdivide this. But before I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bevel to this, and I'll add a bevel to this form here. So this bevel here, I'll just click on the bevel tool, and 0.5 actually isn't bad, and I'll hit 2 segments, and that just gives it again a nice little bevel there. Then I'll add those divisions. So again, I have a hotkey for my insert edge loop tool here, but if I double click on it and then type in 10 here and then close this, I can click along here and have 10 edge loops. Then I just have to make sure I click on the arrow to escape out. And so this object's pretty much done. I have to still do the stairway. Now this object here, I have to bevel it, but I don't want to bevel all these divisions along the sides here. And if you remember from the divisions I had before from the previous cube, I didn't have these divisions along here, so I'd repeat that same process. So what I would do is just make sure all my edges were selected here by, again, double clicking, and it would add the edge loop around there. I unfortunately deleted my object, but I'll just redo a cube here. I'm going to pause while I do this real fast. So again, I didn't redo the whole thing, but just to share with you, okay, here's pretend the pyramid. So I would add the bevel to it, and this one seems a little bit too big, so I'm going to go with a 0.2 value, and then 2 segments here to add some extra detail. Then I would add the edge loops here. So I would, again, double click on the tool and add however many. I think 10 worked pretty good. I'm going to go and click 10 this way, and then 10 this way. And what this is, it basically gives you the ability to it's not necessary for adding materials, but for your if you're gonna add textures like I did. If we hit number 6 here, these texture maps, it's nice to subdivide the mesh. The textures will always look better on subdivided polygons. But again, you don't have to necessarily do that if you're just going to add a flat material on there, like gold or something, which might be kind of cool. So we're going to end the tutorial here. We're going to break it up in a couple parts. Next tutorial, we'll go over on how to finish up the stairs and then talk about how I did the top here. So until next time, see you soon in Autodesk Maya. Cheers!